Welcome back to Impossibly Unremarkable, a podcast hosted by myself, Jonathan Butts, and my longtime friend, co-host, and chickadee, Elliot Markson.
That's right, and we are just three chickens talking today. Yes, we have a guest, and we are joined today by Kaitlin Klarer. She is a sex and relationship coach, educator, and creator. She created the show Watch Girls Watch Porn, as well as, helps her clients achieve their full sexual potential. So we're very excited to talk with her today. How are you doing?
Am I chirp? Is that how you answered? Like, what? I need to ask, what's up with the chickadee stuff?
Okay. Yeah. So this podcast that you stumbled yourself into is very wild. We'll have a different intro every single time, and it's never related to anything. So chickadees has never even been said before.
Hold up. I don't know why you said chickens. I don't really get that, but I called you my chickadee because it's my favorite bird, and you're one of my favorite people. But
I guess I misunderstood what a chickadee is. I apologize. That's my bad, guys.
Small, plump bird, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, I would have thought chickens.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You're the nerd for knowing that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Get it together.
That's too weird.
My bad, guys. My bad.
Cool. Awesome.
Question. I'm sorry.
No, I just asked how you're doing today. What's going on? Are you feeling good?
Feeling good. Yeah, I had dinner with a friend, and we had burger. I ordered a burger, and they looked from the photo. They looked really big, like they were going to be like massive. Giant. Then we looked at the price because it's downtown Dallas, and it's in an area that's a little bit expensive. And we looked at the price. We were like, "Oh my god, it's $8 for the whole burger!"
Whoa!
But then we got it. And it was like not a slider, but a little bit bigger than a slider. It was like, we were both like, "Oh, okay."
Makes sense now.
In the world.
Yeah. It's one of those. It was one of those restaurants where you're like, "Where are we eating after this?" sort of thing, right?
Legitimately still hungry. Yeah, I'm gonna eat more after this.
Cool. Okay, so let's break the ice a little bit. Let's get started. Let's start with your search history. Hear what you've been searching on the internet. Get a peek into Kaitlin's brain for a quick sec, and what do we got?
So, okay. Recent. So mine's actually, I have a really, I was wondering if this was going to be embarrassing, but the most recent thing that I looked at is really cool. It's called omgyes.com.
Ooh.
And have you heard of this?
I have not.
Sounds familiar, but I could not tell you anything about it.
It's amazing. I've heard about it for the longest time. So it's basically a research company that did a bunch of research about different types of female pleasure. So it goes over like what type of what is the most used technique for clitoral stimulation, or what are the variations in how women like G-spot stimulation, things like that. And I got a free subscription to it because I'm an educator, right? And I started looking at it, and it was like, this is so much better than I expected it to be, because not only do they explain everything in really plain language, but they actually have demonstrations of just women who are like, I like my clit to be touched like this, and it's really really insightful. It's very vulnerable. It's very insightful. It's very cool. And my friend who is pregnant, I was telling her about this website, and I was like, you need to, or she actually just had a kid. She's not pregnant anymore. Telling her about the website, and I was like, you need to get on this to try to see, to explore what feels good to you now that you've given birth, because everything changes after you have a kid, right? Yeah. There's hormones all over the place. Your downstairs equipment looks really, goes through hell and comes back together. So that was the most recent thing that I looked I can't speak more highly about OMGS. You guys should do it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Unless
Good info to
Unless you're
have.
not interested in vulvas, in which case then it's you could use it for pub trivia.
Hey, yeah, there you go. There you go.
I have
Awesome.
a friend who's completely gay. Like he's actually
Mhm.
he's never even seen like a vulva in real life or a pussy in real life. And he told me the other day, he was like, Kaitlin, I watch all of your Instagram shit. Like and it's all about female pleasure. And he's like, I
Yeah.
know I'm not gonna use it for anything. I just like to know, just in case. I like out of the back of the head.
Hey, yes, you can pull out a fun fact every once in a while, or just like, have that in your brain, right?
It was the nicest compliment I've ever heard.
Yeah. It also speaks to how, your content must be that good, right? He doesn't even need it, but he enjoys it. He's like, it's educational. I'm learning,
No, I rubbed it in.
Awesome. Awesome.
What's your search history? Are we allowed to do that?
Oh, she's taking command of this podcast. She's demanding our search history. Oh man. I don't have anything interesting. Do you have anything, Jonathan?
Yeah. I was on TikTok, and like, how some TikTok videos will just be like screenshots of tweets. Like it's just highlighting fun tweets.
I do that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, there was this, and this is just fucking stupid, but there was this tweet talking about how there was a reality show called the Jack Sparrow House, and I fell hook, line, and sinker for this idea. Let's just assume this is a real thing, because that's kind of how my brain works. But it was like a reality TV show about Jack Sparrow impersonators, like 14 of them, all of them in a house together. And then like whoever doesn't break character, like wins.
What?
And I'm like, wow, that sounds fucking awesome. I'm like,
cool.
I want to see this. And so I typed in Jack Sparrow. The second option was Jack Sparrow House with like autofill. And then the first article was Snopes saying, no, that's not true. So like, I got really excited, and then it just crushed me. Just crushed me.
No.
Yeah.
I would totally watch that, man. Our audience knows I love shit reality television, and that's something true. I would definitely dive into for sure.
Oh my God. Someone has to make that. Now that the demand is clearly there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole market for that kind of content.
And then every season they just do a different character, First season's Jack Sparrow. Why don't they mix it up? Next season, something different. They have to stay in character.
Stewie House? Urkel House?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. You're on to something here. And Kaitlin knows, because she's got the connection. She's created a show before, so she knows all about this.
That's true.
She's got the way to do it. Speaking of which, I do want to jump into your story, Kaitlin, and give our audience, I guess to start off, I just want to give them some of your background, where you came from, and kind of leading up into, I guess, how you found sex coaching and, how you came to where you are now.
So I went and got my master's in counseling because I was always really interested in understanding how people work. But while I was going through that, I found normal therapy to be really boring. I like going through therapy. I didn't like doing therapy. And so I was like, well, maybe this isn't for me. I finished it, and I've got all my credentials. But I became a stripper instead, and it was like, well, maybe, I don't know, I'll figure out what to do with myself eventually. And then a couple of years later, I heard about the occupation of being a sex coach, because in school, nobody was telling me that was an option. Nobody was like, you could do these cool alternative things. It was very much like, you could do research, or you could do normal therapy.
Yeah.
It was very much, it took me a while to even find the term. And then once I did, I was like, oh, that sounds like a thing that I would really like. So what makes sex coaching different from sex therapy or therapy in general is that I deal with clients who have an array of different sexual problems, and then we kind of move forward with that issue. So it's a lot of it's pretty directive. It's a lot of education. It's a lot of like working through things, but it's in a forward motion. Whereas with therapy, what you're doing is you're looking at the issue and then you're moving backwards and then going, okay, well, why am I the way that I am? And so when I see clients and they seem like they have very deep-rooted, long-standing issues that just have been happening for a very long time, or a lot of sexual trauma, things like that, then I refer them out to a therapist. But the stuff that I do as a coach is just really fucking fun. And and so once I found that, I started building up my own practice, because there is really there's no place where I could just go and say like, hi, are you looking for a sex coach? Right? Like I can't apply on Indeed.com or put it on my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
The only option was to build my own practice, right? So I did that, and surely out of boredom during the pandemic, I uploaded a show where it was me and a friend, and we were watching porn and reacting to it. I did not think anybody was going to find it interesting, because we're not naked, we're not sexy in any way. We're literally just sitting around in our living room like, oh, look at this thing happen. Isn't that interesting? But then it did surprisingly well, and I hooked up with a production studio, and then we went from kind of like, doing it in our home to a high production studio, and those videos did quite well organically, and then I partnered with PornHub, and that was really cool. And then when they reached out to me, they also told me that they have a sexual wellness program. They invited me to be a sex educator for them. So everything I'm currently doing is crazy to me. Like I wake up and I'm like, is this what I get to do? That's so cool. It's so fucking cool. It's so cool. So I feel very lucky.
Awesome. And that show you're talking about is Watch Girls Watch Porn. I did actually watch a few episodes of this, right? I wanted to get an idea of what this really is. And it actually is crazy to be like, it was actually kind of funny, and like, in a way, like, cause you're commentating on what's happening, right? You're sitting down with their guest, right? Or multiple guests sometimes, it seemed. And, basically just watching a porn video and then talking about what's happening and reacting to it. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yep. Yeah, it's the vibe that we're going for is kind of like Howard Stern's Shock meets The View.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I feel it. So you said you just like one day just set up with your friend in your living room and just started watching it. Did you come up with this idea beforehand, or was it just kind of on a whim? You're like, you know what? I'm going to watch porn and record myself watching porn.
So it was actually my husband's idea, and he was like, wouldn't it be interesting if you tried doing this? And then I was like, I think that could be really funny, but I also didn't see it taking on the life that it did. And it was so cool to start to incorporate different types of guests. So I started off with comedians or friends of mine who were strippers, things like that. But then I started moving on to watching stuff with different adult content creators. And my favorite by far, if you haven't watched one yet, but they're the fucking funniest to me, is when somebody makes their own content and then watches it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people who it feels really cringy to them because they don't watch it, right? And so like their reactions are always like, oh my God, this is so weird. I love it. I love it. It's hands down my favorite episodes.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Here. So I guess to take a step back, I did want to hear more about how you actually learned about sex coaching. You said you just kind of like heard about it as a thing that could potentially be a career path. I guess what was that journey to actually discovering that? Was there somebody in your life that sort of was that catalyst to spark that and move you in that direction? Or was this something you stumbled upon in a library? You dusted off an old book and it said sex coaching on it.
I was at the grocery store, and the checkout clerk was like, "You would be a great sex coach."
Oh.
Wow.
What kind of conversations you have at the checkout line?
No, I know. So it can get crazy sometimes. So actually, it was my own therapist. So I've been seeing the same therapist for 7 years, and he told me about the profession, and I started looking into it, and I became obsessed with it. And I just started reading about it, and then from there I started getting specialized training. So that looks like just reading more from the areas of sexuality, and then also getting supervision. So I get supervision, or have gotten supervision for a while, from a couple of different professionals. So I work with I work with somebody who is, her name's Dr. Nan Wise, and she's a neuroscientist and then also a sex coach. And so I've gotten a lot of good information from working with her as well. So that's how I got into the thing.
Cool.
So a question I have. So, I mean, just regular therapy obviously requires a great deal of vulnerability, to kind of break yourself down in front of, a professional. But I have to assume that with sex coaching, it's like another layer of vulnerability, because it is, oftentimes treated as taboo. Throughout your practice, how do you kind of break down that vulnerability to, improve your clients' lives?
Yeah. So Jonathan, you're completely accurate that therapy requires a lot of vulnerability, and it can feel really scary. But then so talking about emotions is scary, but then if you take talking about emotions, but then also talking about sex, which we basically don't talk about in the natural world, right? We're told to not talk about it. You learn, like, you're just supposed to end up being good at it or learning how to do it, but you can't talk about it. So it can feel very scary to people. And actually, one of my favorite things do is just work with clients who have some type of fear around their desire, and then be able to be a safe place for them to just kind of air that out. Just being a non-judgmental space can really change people. So I'll give you an example. I have a client who he identifies as heterosexual, and he was so confused and so distraught about the fact that he really gets off on wearing women's pantyhose and panties, and it's called feminization. And when he came to me, he came with a lot of distress. So oftentimes I actually end up working with clients who have already been feeling like a lot of distress, because for them to actually reach out to me, they have been thinking about it for a while. It's usually not somebody who just kind of came early once and they want some tips. It's usually somebody who's been thinking about it for a while. Although I'm happy with working with somebody who is in less distress, but for the most part, they're reaching out to me after they have exhausted all of their other options and they don't know where to go. And so it's really fun getting to work with a client like the person who enjoys feminization, to be able to explain, like, hey, you're not weird. There's actually, there's a whole group of people who are out there. And not only that, right, you're heterosexual and you're nervous that a woman is going to find you or your desires off-putting. Guess what? There are women out there who like this and they feel just as distraught and just as isolated as you do because they don't know how to connect with they don't know how to connect with another person like you. So if you can become comfortable with this, but then also meet other people who are of like mind. So by getting into, like fetish or kink communities, dating people who are more alternative and finding them in these alternative places like, subreddit communities so that is a really exciting and very liberating thing. Trying to think if I answered your question.
You did.
Okay.
And I think that has to be, I mean, like you were saying earlier, there's not really, maybe the more so now, but back when you were getting started, there wasn't really like go to the sex coach school and, there's a huge network. So it must be nice for your clients to now have that kind of access to the kind of, I don't know, treatment's the right word, but the kind of, ability to communicate with like a professional. So I think that,
right.
I think that's just a great resource that you're there for. And then I was reading on your website, and there was a specific thing you mentioned. So I'm going to read this quote from you. I am passionate about challenging our society's pervasive sex negative scripts and view sexuality as a highly diverse and inclusive entity. I use a holistic biopsychosocial approach when helping clients achieve their sexual fulfillment. Now, neither Elliot nor I are professionals in any manner.
Correct.
So I'm curious kind of what exactly like the biopsychosocial approach, what that means really, and kind of what that entails.
So biopsychosocial means taking into consideration biology, so the bio part, so parts of your body that are affecting your life. So maybe if somebody has stress in their body, that can lead to all different types of sexual function and dysfunction, right? So if you're holding stress in your body, you may have a hard time orgasming, or you might have early ejaculation. And then psycho is the psychological aspect of sexuality. So the things that you're thinking inside of your mind. So if you have early ejaculation and you're thinking in your head, oh man, I'm like, I came early last time, I'm going to do it this time. And then I'm psyching myself up and it makes it even worse inside of my head. So that's the psycho part. And then the social part is, how does society affect our sexuality? So, for example, with the client I was talking about earlier, who is heterosexual and likes feminization, he had a lot of distraught around what society thinks about him. So when I'm working with a client, I'm always thinking about biology, psychology, and the social aspects and how that affects our sexuality.
Gotcha.
Cool.
So kind of like a multi-pronged way of looking at a client's situation.
Definitely.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Gotcha.
So you touched on the social aspect of that. So I wanted to ask about that in general, like society. So, I mean, we obviously in the last few years, we've been kind of pushing for a more sex positive culture. You being a champion of that, do you, regardless of that, we still live in a society that kind of discourages open discussions or treats the talk of sex as taboo? How do you think we as a society move past that? Is it just a matter of time, or how is that something we can work through?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. I think that it's going to take work, but I think that we as a society have been consistently edging in that direction, that direction. And we're doing the same thing with therapy in general, and just kind of looking at ourselves in general, right?
Right.
So it I am so impressed with the Gen Z generation. So I have two nieces, and when I talk to them about things going on, and well, actually, I'm going to give a specific example. So
Sure.
I hung out with my youngest niece, and we did mini golf, and she told me, "Hey, it kind of I don't know what to talk to you about. It kind of makes me feel weird because you're an adult, and I don't really know how to. I don't know what to talk to you about." I was oh my God, I was so endeared by that. How how transparent. Like, it's not just her, it's kind of like that entire generation that is doing a better job at being transparent about how they feel and their emotions. Now, are there negatives to that? Yeah, because there are people who are critiquing Gen Z and saying, they're overly emotional. They're milking that. Well, maybe, but it's also something that I think that we need to move in that direction. And as a whole, I'm just so excited by our community's ability to move into a place of talking about life and emotions and things. That is the same for sex, right? And I
Mhm.
think that ever since OnlyFans happened, the fact, oh my God, how crazy is OnlyFans? How that is such a during the pandemic, all of a sudden we had all of our neighbors were on OnlyFans, and
Yeah.
the people at the people at the grocery store were on OnlyFans. And the fact that that many people got interested in doing something around like sex work of some sort, or something sexy in some regard, that means that it's popular. That means that it's
Mhm.
pop culture now, and that is such a crazy thing. And it's also an amazing thing that um, any type of adult content creator, they are mostly making that money themselves. Whereas in the past, it used to be that there were production studios, and then the production studios made the bulk of the money, but then they had actors who made some money. No, that's
Mhm.
not the case. Production studios are still around, but there's not a lot of them, and the fair majority of content that is out there is uploaded by the creator. So that means they are directly being monetized. And the fact that there are so many people who there's so many women specifically who are doing this because they can make good money now and it's in their
Mhm.
power, means that our perception of sex and sex work in general is changing over time. So I love that. And so I think that it still takes us actively talking about it, actively working at it. But with people like you all with podcasts that are willing to, get into some nitty gritty, we're
Right.
all we're all doing that one piece at a time, one piece at a time.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. I mean, that's really the big reason why I wanted you on, because I thought it would be so interesting to have an open conversation about it, because it's something that I think is important. And your point on OnlyFans is, you're right. It's a way that for people to not only openly talk about sex, but it's in the zeitgeist, it's in pop culture. It's something showing people expressing themselves in a way that maybe hadn't been able to do that before. So yeah, I think it's all positive and it's something that we should continue to do. And I'm glad that we could get you on today and talk about it. But yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Please.
I'm curious as to what you all have seen with regard to the people that you have interviewed on your show. How have you seen the talk around sexuality change?
I guess I'll say so specifically. perspectives gained from our podcast, we're fairly new. We just started in August, September of last year, and the actual interviewing of bringing guests on is also fairly new. So I'd say from that point of view, you're probably the first person that we've really dove into that conversation with. But outside of the podcast and kind of hitting on what you said about Gen Z, which I'm a proud member. Granted, I'm like the first year that you can possibly be Gen Z, but it's very interesting to see how much we've changed. Because I remember just being in middle school and in high school, the F slur was super common. Elliot and I were both in show choir. We were, consistently called gay for just this, very normal activity.
Singing and dancing.
Yeah, classic gay, antics. But now, and granted, I'm, haven't been in high school or a middle schooler for quite some time. But seeing, younger kids, kind of in my family and in friends' families, just the way they interact with each other. I'm sure bullying to an extent still exists, but just the openness, the lack of judgment seems, very prevalent. And especially like when you see, videos made on TikTok. I mean, that's probably like my biggest exposure to the youth is just, the different videos that are making. But they just seem way more open to be themselves. Whereas like when I was in middle school and high school, and granted, I'm just a straight dude, nothing particularly special about me. But even back then, there was a part of me that felt like deep shame because of how other people would treat me for just, like Elliot said, just singing and dancing.
Right.
So I think to answer your question, I think just since, in the last 10 years, the conversation about sexuality and expression of that sexuality has completely changed in that, for the most part, you're not demonized. Now, granted, there's still, very conservative areas in the country and the world where it's, still very much taboo. But, from my perspective, it's changed for the better,
Agree. We'll just slowly work on
it. We're getting there. But I do have a question. And this doesn't really apply to OnlyFans because I think we'd all agree that OnlyFans kind of empowering, kind of takes back some of that control. But kind of looking at like traditional porn, there are people that will like criticize that as being kind of detrimental to the health of society, and also like misogynistic. So how do you feel about those attitudes, and like where do you see porn fitting in like a healthy society? Because go. Sorry.
So I think that the critiques about porn potentially being harmful and misogynistic is back when the production studios were the ones where it was a dude who was in the chair, who was filming everything, and he was uploading and making all of the money based off of all of the videos. But that is just not there are very few production studios out there, and everything I react to on Watch Girls is content that is on PornHub, and everything that I see on PornHub for the most part is mostly uploaded by creators. And so I think that is kind of like an outdated notion, or it's a notion based off of people who don't have all of the facts.
Sure.
Oh man, there was a specific point that I was going to make. Give me a second to get through it.
Sure.
Damn it. I'm just going to keep going with this. For the most part, though, I think that, I remember where I was going to go. So there are porn sites that they advertise themselves as ethical porn. And there are people who ask me frequently, they're like, tell me, what is ethical porn? I don't want to feel bad about the stuff that I'm watching. Honestly, I kind of think that the concept of ethical porn is a little bit, I think it's kind of advertising more so than anything, because most of the stuff on any tube site is going to be ethical because it's uploaded by the person.
Right.
And so how can you ask for anything more ethical than that? Like they uploaded it. They said, I like this. Let me get some money from it. They're going to get some money from it. And, so there are places that kind of pride themselves on being ethical porn, but I kind of think that that's a little bit of like marketing pizzazz. The only time that I can honestly see porn being destructive is so guys are more at risk to this than women, where there's some instances where there's some combination of watching porn and then people having delayed ejaculation. And that's because you can go down the rabbit hole with porn. So if you have a wife who is small chested and has red hair, and then you want to get a little bit of diversity when you watch porn, and you watch big boobs and blonde hair, but then you start watching it every day, and then you need more and more stimulation, and then next you need threesomes or foursomes, and then next you need to have like a leprechaun and a donkey in the corner or something like. So that can become problematic for some people, but it's porn can be bad the same way that alcohol can be bad. There are lots of people who they drink alcohol and it's social and it's fine and they don't run into any issues with it. There are lots of people who they watch porn and it's fine, but then there are some people who are at risk to it, and so I think that it is important to just transparent about that or have information out there so that if people run into, they're realizing they can't come with their wife anymore because they're watching porn and they're used to that. I think it's good to have education out there. And I think that's definitely better than there are some people who just say like, porn is bad. It can do this, so take it all off the table. Well, that's kind of crazy. And there's actually upsides to porn. So I suggest clients to watch porn if they are trying to figure out things that they find desirable. So sometimes people don't really know what turns them on, and women kind of run into this more than men, but they just may not be thinking about sex that frequently, and they don't know the things that they find erotic. And so I tell them, like, hey, go onto a porn site and just watch some shit and see if there's anything that piques your interest. So there's a reason why BDSM all of a sudden just got really big, right? And I think that porn has a lot to do with it, because there are all of these people who didn't know that was something that they would find sexy until it became readily available and easy to find in the home.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm glad to see, changing attitudes, and I do kind of, agree that a lot of the beliefs about porn being bad are kind of very archaic and probably coming from people who really aren't, with it anymore. So you mentioned that you're now an educator for PornHub's Wellness Center. I think that's super cool that you have that opportunity. Can you kind of like tell us more about what that looks like for you day to day?
Yeah. So when they reached out to me, I was like, I'm sorry, you have a what? You have what? I
didn't know they had one, to be honest.
I didn't. Yeah. So PornHub, I cannot be more excited about PornHub and the things that they're doing, because they're getting content on their platform that is educational, but then also things that are not necessarily porn. So like Watch Girls, but then there are other people who have safe for work things on their platform. So there's actually have you guys heard about the Asian math teacher who blew up on Pornhub?
No. Please enlighten me.
Gotta look him up after this. So he is, I forget from he's somewhere in Asia, right? Who he just uploaded math tutorials. He's a math teacher. That's all he does. But because it was so weird, he fucking blew up. And he went on, like, he ended up going on to, like, all of these American talk shows, like Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that, because he just like blew up out of nowhere. So Pornhub is getting like normal content, which is very fast. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
So he was just doing math tutorials, just fully clothed math tutorials.
Yeah.
He was just trying to engage with his students. He knew they were going to be on Pornhub anyway, so he was trying to get to them a different way. I don't know.
It worked. And it worked.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. He blew up.
So fucking fun. And so what I do with their sex education site is I make content. So I make YouTube videos for them. I write blogs for them, things like that.
Gotcha.
Cool. Awesome.
That is so interesting. Elliot, we need to
really
get on Pornhub.
Yeah? Should we just start posting our content on there? It sounds like you can.
I don't think it would blow up. I don't think it's as niche as a math tutor, but
That's
maybe.
true. That's true. You never know.
Well, here's another good thing about it is that it's never going to be taken down for being indecent.
That's true.
They can't.
That's
they can't
true.
take this away.
My Instagram is one fucking warning away from being taken down. But Pornhub,
Oh, really?
takes you down. I'm like G-rated on Pornhub.
Yeah, it's definitely probably really hard to get banned on Pornhub, I would imagine. You'd really have to do something wild.
Have to do something bad, yeah.
Cool. So with your experience in the wellness center and being a sex coach in general, what's the biggest thing you've learned, I guess, in your journey and in your career, and something for you personally that you've taken away from that experience?
The big one. I have two. One is that variation in sexuality is shockingly diverse. Shockingly diverse. Like I'm a woman, so I understand that women are in. So even within men, it's very diverse. But then when you get to women, it's like it's mind blowing, the diversity and things that people find pleasurable or things that get them off. And even as a woman myself, like I kind of knew, but then I didn't really know. And so I started like really delving into my education and also working with other people, and finding like, wow, there are just so many different things that work for people. And so that bit of information is going to inform my next bit of light bulb moment. So my next light bulb moment is talking about sex is scary. And I had a client who told me that his wife is terrible at giving blowjobs. Like, man, dang girl, she's just not good at giving blowjobs. So like that. He said it just like that. And I was like, okay, well, how are you instructing her? How are you giving her feedback? And he said, well, I would never do that. That would just hurt her feelings. And this poor woman is on her knees for 10 years, putting in time, putting in work, putting in her best effort, and he doesn't like it. And how that is so, like, first of all, kind of fucking rude. Kind of fucking rude. She's trying her best and she's getting zero input. Yeah. But it also just highlights how scared we are to talk about sex. And okay, if we go back to the point that I just made, which is, okay, everybody is really diverse in the things that they like. So we can't just make an assumption that what we're doing is going to be enjoyable to the other person. And so we really need to change our culture around how do you ask, hey, baby, does this feel good? Does this feel good when I do this? Do you like it when this happens? And then also, provide, a space where it's okay for someone to say, no, I don't like it when you do that, but I like it when you do this. And it's not a shaming thing. It's actually a normal thing. Yeah, those are my big takeaways.
Cool. I think that's really important too, because it's like anything. It's like communication is always going to be the most important thing. You need to like be able to communicate how you're feeling, even outside of like a sexual context. It's like communication is very important, and learning how to communicate properly and appropriately is definitely key for most situations. I've learned in my long 26 years of existence.
You're so learned, you're so wise.
You're Gen Z too. You're on the cusp of Gen Z. You get it. You both get it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. We try to be open. We try our best.
I feel it.
Okay, so my last question for you is just what advice you would have for anybody who's currently struggling with expressing themselves sexually or in any manner like that. What's just any young person who might be listening to this, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, it's that if you are dealing with anything sexual that you're having an issue with, or if you have any desires that you're having issues with, just know that you're not alone, and that talking about it and being around other people who have similar interests can be a really amazing and healing thing. You are not the only person. And
well, thank you, Kaitlin. We've loved having you on. It's been a true pleasure and very enlightening. Why don't you take some time to shout yourself out, tell the people what you're doing, where they can find you, what you're up to.
Yeah, so I am a sex and relationship coach. I work with individuals, I work with couples, and I'm really responsive to my DMs and Instagram or Twitter. So if you have any questions, shoot me a DM and I'll answer you. You can find me at MySexCoach on Instagram and also on Twitter.